I'm going to show you how I get my students to become masters of skip counting. And to do that, I'm going to show you how I teach them to skip count by sevens. Now, the reason I've picked skip counting by sevens is because they're one of the most painful numbers to count by. And that's because the pattern doesn't repeat until you've been through it 10 times. To start off the lesson, just put a 2-minute timer up on the board and pick a random number, let's say 4. Then ask them to count by sevens from that number as far as they can go within the 2 minutes. Now we're going to be repeating this with the 2-minute timer at the end of the lesson so that the students can see just for themselves how much they've improved when they use the strategy that I'm about to show you. So give everyone some Unifix blocks and ask them to try and make as many combinations of 7 as they can when breaking 7 into 2 equal parts. Now once we're finished, you'll quickly see that we only end up with 4 different 7s. We've got our whole 7, we've got our 6 and a 1 or 1 and a 6, we've got our 5 and a 2 or 2 and a 5, and we've got our 4 and a 3 or 3 and a 4. Now I'm going to pick a new non-zero starting point to count by, in this case 5, and I've got to think about which one of these representations would work best if I wanted to add 7 onto 5. Now in this case, the one that makes the most sense would be the 5 and the 2, because I'm going to be using my number bonds to 10 or friends to 10, because I know 5 and 5 makes 10 and then 2 more, 12. So now that I'm at 12, which representation works best? Well, it's easy just to add 2 more onto 7, so I'm going to use my whole 7 because I know that 2 and 7 or 7 and 2 is 9, so that puts me up to 19. Now that I've got 19, I'm going to try and think about adding the 1 and the 6. The 1 more is going to make my 10 to get me to 20, and then 6 more, 26. And now here I've got a 6, so which representation? Yep, the 4 and the 3. I'm going to think, well, 4 more will be my friend of 10 that gets me to 30, and I'll have 3 left, so that puts me on 33. And now that I'm at 33, well, 3 and 7 makes 10, so I'm going to again go back to my whole 7, and now that will get me to 40. And straight away, I can use my whole 7 again because it's easy just to add 7 onto 40, and that gets me to 47. Now that I'm at 47, 3 more gets me to 10, and that will leave me with 4 left, so I will have 54. And now that I'm at 54, well, 4 and 6 makes 10, so I'm going to use the 6 and 1 version of 7 to then get me to 61. Now that I'm at 61, 1 and 7 is pretty easy to add together, so now I'm going to be at 68. And lastly, here we go. I'm going to flip this one over and use this 7 as a 2 and a 5. So 2 more will make 70, and then 5 more, 75. So then your aim is that after having a go with building it with concrete materials gives us that initial experience, and then we're visualizing it and looking at the representations as we go. And then the idea is that after the students have had a whole heap of practice, they commit the number bonds to 7 to memory, and then no longer need the concrete materials in front of them as a reminder and can just draw upon these as mental objects in their mind. Now, of course, while I love doing this with 7s, this can work with other skip counting numbers as well. So don't feel like you can only do this with 7s. You could do this with any kind of skip counting. It's just that 7s are great because, like we said, that pattern doesn't reveal itself for 10 whole iterations. So it really makes students kind of sweat it out. You're trying to use this strategy of, oh, what do I need to break that 7 in to make 10? And then, like I said, at the end, set another 2-minute timer up on the board and see how much further they can get when they're using these concrete representations, and when they're using this strategy instead of relying on some things they might have been doing, like, for example, they might have still been counting by 1s, or who knows what weird and wacky strategies that they might have been trying to force themselves to skip count by 7s. Let me know how it goes. Love to hear about it. Go math it up.